As a 41-year strength and conditioning coach and a 61-year-old woman, there is one exercise that I know we all should be including, and most of us are not. It's the farmer's carry. So if you haven't been doing one and aren't familiar with it, let's define, first of all, what it is. And essentially, it's like a suitcase carry. You're carrying weights, could be dumbbells, it could be kettlebells in each hand, and walking. Ideally, it is a carry, so you're walking, moving forward, turning around, walking back in the other direction. Now, there are multiple ways that you can do it, but here's why it is gold when it comes to overall total body strength. And that is, it works about all of them, 25 muscles all at one time. So from grip strength, holding on to the weight itself, grip strength is directly correlated with total body strength and your longevity. That's a win. Your forearms, because in order to have a grip, your forearm muscles here are working. You're also stabilizing your upper back and your shoulders so that you don't roll forward or roll back if you lose your balance. You're stabilizing in the center. Whenever you're stabilizing, you're also working your core muscles. If we're walking and we've added load to that walk, we're working our quadriceps and our glutes. So as we walk and push off of our ankle, last but not least, we're working through the calf muscles and around joints, all equally getting stronger, more stabilization. And here's the thing, it's a very functional exercise. Now the definition of that gets thrown under the bus, it gets carried away, people don't really know what it means. So let's break that down, number one. Functional really means it really has great application to daily activities of life. And we all want that, but it does make sense to do some traditional exercises, and you see me do them here all the time. Squats and lunges and chest press, bent over rows, bent arm pullover, and the purpose of those exercises is to work major muscle groups. So a chest press really isolates the pectoral muscles as well as your tricep in the back of the arm. Pulls or rows emphasize back muscles and bicep curls. And likewise, when we do squats, we emphasize quadriceps and glutes. So there is purpose to that, and here's the reason. We want strength in those in an isolated way, and we want to build muscle mass in those larger major muscle groups because that lends itself to being stronger for every activity that we do, burning more calories or expending more energy in every activity we do because muscle is metabolically active. Burns more calories, expends more energy, your metabolism is higher. Much more than if you say do cardiovascular activity. Although that moves muscle as well, it doesn't build it. And in some cases, can actually be muscle wasting if you're doing too much of it. But let's come back to functional exercise. Meaning, this is a lot, if I'm loading my arms, it's a lot like carrying bags of groceries. Holding on and carrying it in this way to the farmer's carry is going to have a lot of transfer because we're loading everything. Not to mention, we're loading the skeleton while you're doing this. So we're holding on to the weights, it's pulling on your skeleton. What are you doing to combat that pull down that is happening from the weight? Postural work. So when you're concerned about your posture, one of the best ways to get better posture is to potentially pick up something heavy and have to fight against that. So we end up standing up a little more strongly and more directly if we got something in our hands than if we're just left to our own devices. We somehow push back against that fight of gravity, which is really what's happening because the weight is wanting to go with gravity and it's pulling you down. You are much more likely to stand up straight. Here are ways that I like to use the farmer's carry. And here's what's related to longevity. So if you can carry, ideally, if you're between 40 and 49, if you can carry 75% of your current body weight, split between both hands, right? So let's say the number you need to hit is 70, 35 and 35 in a dumbbell or kettlebells. Make them easier to carry, of course. Now, for all of you, it doesn't work that easily. You might have to have a 30-pound dumbbell and a 40-pound dumbbell, but you're ideally splitting it separately and immediately in half so that you're even on both sides. However, I will tell you that it's not necessarily a bad thing to have it uneven. But when you can do that, your risk of all disease and mortality is much lower. So the stronger you are, the better. Now, if you are between your 50 and 59, 60 and 69, the number you actually have to hit is not quite as high. But if you're about 50 years old, you want to be thinking you aspire to carry 75% of your weight for at least 30 seconds. So be able to walk across the floor. So it's not about speed necessarily. We do want some control as well. But let's talk about when you don't necessarily want to do both. I will have women do single arm. So think of this, when you go to the airport, a lot of times you may have 2 suitcases, I get ya, but if you have a carry-on, you're just holding that in one arm, or you're carrying a heavy bag in one arm a lot of times, and nothing in the other arm. We need to be able to adjust, and so you don't want that weight pulling you like this. You want to be stable, and if you're doing that, this side, your obliques actually are working much harder. As a core exercise, I will have women in our programs hold on to one single weight, go walking down the hall, come back, either switching arms or do a full lap with one side and then switch and do the other side. You will usually find out, for instance, I'm right dominant. So if I do that, I find that when I'm holding over here, I'm actually weaker here. You do want something that makes it difficult for you to stand upright. You don't want something that's so easy that you can lift it easily, not really have to think about it very much. You want something that is starting to pull you, and so you can feel, I'm braced in order to hold on to that correctly. So I love that. Here's another way to hold it, and that would be up and overhead. Now, you want to make sure, first of all, that you can go walking down the hall with nothing in your hands but your hands overhead with good balance, good form, because I have my hands slightly in front of me, not directly overhead, where if I had a weight, I would be tempted to arch back. We don't want to put any stress on that lower back, so we want that slightly out front. So you want to make sure you can do that. So you would start with something light and hold it up and overhead first and walk with that, and then gradually get heavier. So the weight that you can hold down here at your side is probably much too heavy, at least at first, to put up and overhead. So think about starting small, but holding that up and overhead and walking down the hall can be a way to incorporate just a little bit more core exercise. Anything that is more core, that is really putting your back at a compromised position. If you don't do it well, you want to err on the conservative side. So I love this for the farmer's carry. Number one, going heavy up to 75%. That ideal as your first goal for supporting more longevity. Going a little bit lighter, holding in one arm and then in the opposite arm for core exercise, and also great for balance. And then up and overhead, still a degree of balance up here, but much more core exercise, possibly a little bit more risk to your lower back. So be smart, and if you have any shoulder issues, I wouldn't risk putting this weight up here overhead, not just because of the shoulder issue, because they're not moving, but because you're already going to be thinking about the shoulder, and that lower back could be compromised because of it. So just leave that one out. You've got plenty of choices. But one exercise, 25 different muscles. Now, you're not going to reach a point of muscular fatigue at the end of a farmer's carry. So could you do this one more frequently? Yes, absolutely. because we're not fatiguing any one muscle group, and we're not fatiguing multiple of them either. You can probably do as many as you like, but just a couple times a day, you can work this in, or several times a week, whether it's the day you lift weights or it's not. You're getting a great exercise, and you will find that when you've got to carry buckets of water or buckets of dirt, you don't have any excuses, and you can do it all yourself. So let me know below, are you already using the farmer's carry? How are you doing it, and will you start?